Speaking to everyone. I am. Okay. Welcome, everyone on the YouTube community as well. Thank you for being here. You were catching me in the midst of saying hello to some people in the Zoom room. Apologies for that, but welcome. Thank you for being here. So, we have gathered on this day, and it turns out that today is actually a rather auspicious day, as these events tend to be without my complete and conscious knowledge of that. I recently learned that in moments before I was coming on here, when I was tuning in with my guides, I was informed that Mars just moved out of Cancer, I believe. Mars did something, yes. And that is a very helpful thing. It can be. Of course, every perspective is different, but it is helpful because it is not quite so emotional, but it did move into Leo. So now it's more like drama and expression of emotions rather than keeping it within. That is quite fitting because of all of these energies that we have coming in. And that only happened yesterday. And so today is a very good day to be bringing through this new information because we're in kind of a little bit of a new phase now in this chapter of April that we find ourselves in. And I am doing this, what I'm calling a public forum, because it is firstly, the first public forum that I did, multiple people, a lot of people asked if I would do this again. So that told me that it was helpful to have an experience like that. And this time that we find ourselves in is very, very different. This year, I knew that we were gearing up, but I did not. Of course, even being as psychic as I am, we don't actually know what it's going to feel like until we are in it. And this year has been a lot. And there is so much more to come this year, not just in the months and the days that are ahead of us, but a lot that is going to be revealed, a lot that we are going to experience collectively. And of course, that means individually. And also earth-wise, just the nature of the earth and the way that she is changing. There is a lot happening there. So I would like to take this time during this public forum. I'm going to share with you a little bit of what I'm going to talk about and the way that I'm going to hold this, just so that you can be fully prepared and understand what you're signing up for by being here today. So firstly, I would like to share with you the topics that have already come through about this April and May time. April is a particularly challenging month. I will talk a little bit more about that. So I want to share some things that have already come through regarding that. Then I want to talk a little bit about May and what we're kind of transitioning into for the rest of this month and what we will see coming ahead. And then what I would like to do, and this is what I was telling my members before I came on here, that I'm doing a little bit differently. I am going to actually go into channel live with you all, because what occurred to me is that I am able to, just based on what has already come through, I would like to tune in to find out what else there could be, whether it's anything regarding that, what I am going to speak with you about, if there is something further to say about that, and or other topics, other energies that simply when this all came through, they were not present. And so there could be something more to learn being with all of you here. And something that I really have actually never done is a live public channeling like this. That's normally something that I do just for my members, and you are going to have the chance to ask questions with me. The reason, again, that I want to do this, like I said in the first public forum, I really want to support you as much as I possibly can and to support as many people as I possibly can with this sacred gift that I have. And so by offering this space and a chance for you to ask questions live and in person, my hope and intention is that you're going to learn a lot of information that is not overwhelming, and you're going to be able to ask very specific questions so that you can understand what is relevant for you and how you can move through this month without being left in the dark. Because if you have a question arise, I certainly want to give you the space to ask it. That is what I'm here for. So that is essentially how I'm going to kind of conclude this public forum, is by going into a channeling and then doing a channeled Q&A with you all. So How that will work is you are able to submit your questions. If you're in my Zoom room, you can do it on the chat in there. If you are on YouTube, you can of course do it in the live chat on YouTube. My beautiful tech guru and companion will put those questions into a document for me, and then I will be able to go through them and answer them. And I will go into channel to answer them. Unless there is a clarification question, of course, that's just for me, then I will answer that myself. But I will move in and out of channel to answer those questions with you. So I will tell you, just to say, there are a lot of beings that are supporting this event right now. It's a lot more than I am actually kind of accustomed to seeing. So the energy kind of makes me smile because it's a lot of energy that I'm feeling. You might be feeling that too if you are sensitive to that. But there are a lot of beings that are supporting this, which tells me that we are on the right track. Tells me that this is obviously meaningful for a lot of us. So thank you all. Each and every one of you, thank you for being here, because you are bringing your own energy as well as your own guides and your own wisdom that lives within you, and you are offering it here today. So thank you very much. So, to begin, the first theme that I want to share with you that is going to become more present, not just this month. This month is, I'm going to use kind of an ironic analogy. It's the tremblings, the very beginnings of much larger seismic activity and just geologic activity in general that is going to be taking place, especially this year. That does not necessarily mean that it's going to be highly destructive. It is simply to know that that is something that is going to be increasing. Now, the reason why that's important to know, and the reason why I am sharing it with you, is not simply to tell you that the Earth is going through changes. No, no. If I share something with you, it is because it is relevant to you. That does not mean that you are living in a place where this geologic activity is going to occur. You may be. That I do not know. The reason I am telling you this is because if the Earth is going through significant geologic and seismic activity, that is happening within you as an individual. You are going to be experiencing possibly eruptions, earthquakes, shifting in your day-to-day life and in your experience of your day-to-day life more frequently. As within, so without. It's not the first time I'm going to say that today. The Earth is going through a lot of changes, and so too are you. And if you as an individual are going through a lot of changes, that means society is also going through a lot of changes. Society as in the greater world, communities, the world at large. There is a lot of disruption that is taking place at this time. This month, April, and moving into May, is really when that starts to pick up a little bit more. There is a bigger shuffling that begins to be felt during this time. Now, there are different countries around the world that are experiencing what they are experiencing, their own version of this, and different communities around the world within various countries are experiencing their own version of this, as well as certain systems around the world are experiencing their own version of this seismic activity and this upliftment of what was. That is the primary theme that I really want you to take away, is the destabilization of old structures that are both geologic, individual, and then I will say a third, systemic as well. So that surround the world that we are all affected and that we are all a part of systemically. We are, as a collective, very much in the place where everything is just about to shift. So an analogy would be the silence that comes just before a massive storm starts. I realize that for some of you, that might feel very scary. It might be scary to think that we're going into a storm. And I understand that. And I'm not going to tell you that it won't be scary. I'm going to tell you that you are here, alive, and here right now receiving this message, which means you have the capacity to face that storm. That's what I am going to tell you. A little bit of tough love. We are here to move through this together. And that means that when the storm comes, whether it is something that you experience only internally, or whether it is something that a community that you are a part of faces, or something even beyond a small community that you are a part of faces, it means that you are here and you are not going to be bowled over by the storm. You are going to hold yourself, and not rigidly. You are going to hold yourself with the fierce wisdom that you are a creator. That's all you need to know. That this is a story that you have signed up for, and more importantly, it's a story that you are writing. It is not for you to go run and hide. When something major starts to take place, you don't say, well, this is it. I'm just going to throw in the towel and I'm just going to watch the world around me fall apart. You have free will, so yes, you can do that. But my goodness, if you are here right now, I know that that is not what your soul wants for you. And if you really feel into your heart right now, I know that you know that that's not what your soul wants for you. This is why you came to this call, but this is why you came to this planet, is exactly for this time. Yes, there are labor pains during pregnancy. When giving birth, there is blood. When giving birth, part of the woman, part of the mother, is destroyed in the act of creation. Her body is never the same after that. It's destroyed. The maiden version of her dies, and she transforms into a mother for the sake of new life. So yes, will there be metaphoric moans and pain, and possibly emotional moans and pain that is felt? Yes. During this birthing process, yes, that is very likely. And this is why you came. This is why you're here. Because on the other side of that labor, there is a new earth. There is a field that is ripe for planting, for building, for creating. So yes, we are beings that have chosen to come while the old structures fall. That means that you are, I will not curse on live camera. You are extremely brave and extremely courageous. That is why you are here at this time. Because you are strong enough to be both a doula of death, to allow the old structure to move away, and also a doula of the spirit, a doula of the new earth, one who is bringing in new life at this time. So yes, we are going to witness and experience, and some of us are very tangibly going to feel the falling away of the old structures. And together, we get to imagine and create the new at the same time that the old ones are falling apart. But what I need, what the all needs from you, is for you to not fall apart while the old structures are. You need to be strong so that while all of this instability around you is happening, you are stable in your center. That is part of the reason why in the last public forum, there was a lot talked about strength. A lot was spoken of. Strength in a mental sense, strength in an emotional sense, and also strength in your own health, your physical body, literal strength in your body. That is why it was talked about then. I would love to hear how that's going for you. If I could really speak to you, I would love to hear. And if you want to share with others in the comments, what is your strengthening practice, how that's going for you? It really would be beautiful to share that, to get some encouragement, perhaps some inspiration as to things that you can add, because that is a huge piece, which is why it was brought up quite a few weeks ago now about strengthening yourself. It's for this time and the time that we are just about to get into. This is not a time to fall off the bandwagon. I was just speaking about that with my members actually the other day, that did happen to me. I began to feel a lot of energy and I began to feel unstable in my own self, which is not usual for me. And I realized after contemplation and dragging myself through the mud for a little while, I realized, oh, wait, I'm being ridiculous. I know what I need to do. I actually need to do these practices even more than I was before. And that's asking a lot, I know. To say, wait, I need to spend even more time in meditation or in nature or doing whatever it is that you do to stay grounded and to strengthen yourself. I need to do that more if I'm not feeling strong right now. The answer is yes. That does not mean that it has to be an hour, 30 minutes more. If what you have is 5 minutes, then please do that. Add 5 minutes of time that you are strengthening yourself, whether it is physically, emotionally, or mentally. 5 more minutes during your day. I recommend 5 minutes before you go to bed. If you're doing it once in the morning, then do it once before you go to sleep, because that changes your sleep experience, and then you wake up feeling even stronger the next day. That is a huge piece of what we are seeing. While the old structures are falling away and this massive destabilization is taking place, there is going to be combative, reactive energy that you're going to see. If you're not already seeing it, you will. You will hear more of it. I encourage you not to go seek that out, by the way. There's not really a call for that. You're going to hear about it regardless. And while that is taking place, there is also this immense energy available for freedom and creation. And I want to remind you, because humanity is working through a lot of distortion, and I will just simply leave it at that. Because humanity is working through a lot of distortion, that distortion wants you to pay attention to it. So when you're seeing a lot of stories or reading a lot of stories about violence, about aggression, about drama taking place, it wants you to pay attention to that. And while that's all going on, your creative energy is being siphoned off to creating more of that. But this time, right now, particularly through the rest of this month and going into May, the amount, wow, I just got full chills about to say this to you. The amount of creative energy that we have available to us is immense. this has been coming through almost all year. There is so much creative energy available, but you have to harness it. That means that you have to become fully present and be strong in your center in order to call on that creative energy and not siphon your energy off to the distortion that wants you to look at it. It's not helpful. It's not. And I'm going to say something, and it's okay if you dislike me for it. It really is. It does not make you a better person to watch or read the news. It doesn't. It does not make you a better person to do that. I just want to tell you that there is no such thing as a better person because we are all equal units of God. So that is just a story in your mind. And if you going and reading or watching the news does not leave you with creative potential, why are you giving your energy to that? If reading or watching the news, and I actually am going to say, if anything in your life leaves you feeling less than infinite potential, it's not worth your time. Now, in order to know what is giving me infinite potential, you have to tune into infinite potential because you have to know what that feels like. You have to know how that expresses through you before you can know what in your life is actually feeding that for you. That is why meditation and tuning into the void is what I recommend for everything. That is another theme that, wow, is right here. I have notes before me and I didn't realize that was the next thing. So I'm right on track. That is what I really want to speak to you about is the power of the void. It has been coming through so strongly for me as I've been invited by the void and by my higher self to go out into the void and experience it in ways that I never have before. And to say that is saying a lot because I spent the first 12 years or so of my life hanging out in the void every single night because that's what my guides took me to doing. So that's what I did. And to be invited and called to going into the void because it somehow is different now says a lot. And it is very different. My experience of the void is completely different today than it has ever been in my life. Now, wow, and there's so much energy around that I can feel. There are a lot of reasons as to why that is. A huge portion is because there are so many people who are becoming aware of the power of the void that now the experience of going into the void is much different in the collective, in our own collective experience, our own collective mind. The experience of the void is different. It's much easier now, essentially, to go into the void, and it is simultaneously far more powerful to spend time in the void. Okay, what do I mean by that? And what does being in the void actually do for you? Good question. Going into the void, what I mean by that, the void is precisely what it sounds like. It's nothing. That can be a very difficult concept to even imagine. How do you imagine nothing? Well, you imagine nothing. That, by the way, imagine nothing, that is the prompt that my guides gave me for 12 years as a child. That is how they taught me to go into the void, to imagine nothing. Those were their words every single night for 12 years. So, never missing a night, by the way. Never called out sick. There was no snow day. Not that I wanted one for my guides, but that's all you do. You imagine nothing. That means there is nothing out there. Now, I want to really hammer down on this because sometimes people go into the nothing and they say, I became a light. Well, then you're not in the nothing because a light is information. A light is light, which means that's not nothing. Some people say, I went into the nothing, and while I was out in space, there were these planets. That's not nothing. That's space. The nothing is truly nothing. Now, the only thing that is there is infinite potential. So, how do you quantify that? How do you even qualify that? Other than saying infinite potential, it's very difficult to explain. I can tell you that it's a form of energy, but it's energy that looks like nothing, that feels like nothing. What does nothing feel like? You're going to have to find out for yourself. In that space, choosing to connect with that, you are choosing to connect with the mind of God. Let's go back to, again, the Kabbalion. All is mind. The universe is mental. All is mind. The nothing, the void, is the mind. It's the mind of God. That's another way of understanding it. It is infinite potential. When you spend time in the void and you have detached from your identity, you are truly just floating as a point of consciousness in infinite space. When that is what you do in the void, there is a reorganization that takes place within your mind, your physical brain, your mental space as a mind, your energetic field, and every layer of your energy bodies, as well as your physical body, your emotional body, all becomes more orderly. Order is beauty. When you then come out of the void, everything that you have just experienced inside comes outside because as within, so without. That means that your life becomes more orderly. That means that you and your life become more beautiful. That is what happens. It is such a simple step, and you will experience it. You will. It's the law. It is not reserved for some people. It is simply the natural flow of what happens when you choose to completely let go of everything that you are. You become one, you become unified with the mind of God, and that mind that is way beyond our mind brings order to every aspect of your life and every aspect of your being. That in turn, if we want to take it beyond you, that in turn creates more order and more beauty on the planet. That is what happens. You affect more around you because as your mind becomes more orderly, more minds, as in more people in the collective, they are able to connect with you. They're able to be affected by you, whether it is a conscious experience or not. They soon start to hone in on that order, on that beauty. Their attention turns toward it and they say, what is happening over there? There is something that I cannot describe what it is, but I know that I want some of that. Whether you have a job that is on public display or otherwise, you affect everyone around you. That includes your pets, your family. If you live in an apartment building, you're affecting everyone in the apartment. And every person that you come into contact with on the street, every person that you just think about in your mind. receives more order because you have chosen to align to that. Now, I am sharing that simply for your information so that you know. The reason to go into the void must be for you. It must be so that you create more order in yourself. You don't go in thinking, okay, I'm going to come and sit in the void to create more order for the world. That's beautiful. Can you do that? Absolutely. And in tandem with that practice, do it for yourself. I say this a lot, but that's because it's the easiest thing to forget. It really is only you. It's only you here. Because you are God and God is everything, which means whatever you choose to do for yourself, you are doing for God, which means you're doing it for the all. That is truly how it works. There's no but. There's no what it, no, that is how it works. It is truly that simple. Just like how when you go into the void and you detach from yourself, you create more order. It's also that simple. The mind, the ego, the stories, they're designed to make it more complex. Because Lord knows humans love drama, don't we? That is why the world looks the way it does. It's very dramatic out there, guys. I'm sure you've noticed. Humans love drama. And that means God loves drama. But the truth is simplicity. The truth is simplicity. And that's why many times it's not good enough for people. The truth is not enough for people. They want more. But those are the laws. As you align to the void, which is order, because it is God, so too does order get created in your life. So too does the energy of God surround you more, and then you emanate it more. It's felt in your presence. So, you are able to create order and, of course, anything in the void because the void is infinite potential. So, since I was a very young child learning about this, I have always been able to manifest very easily. And oftentimes to my own detriment, by the way, when I was younger. So when you go into the void, you just surrender. You completely let go to the mind of God, to the nothing. And in that space, you are able to create. But I just want to tell you, you don't have to. Because if all you do is let go and surrender to God, I promise you, God has your back. God has your back because it's you. So things that you have never even imagined, that you think suddenly, wow, this is what I've always wanted, but I never even thought it was possible, suddenly appear before you. When you hang out in the void, that's what happens. Surrendering your will to the will of God is part of how you bring forth the divine nature of your being. That's how it happens. People ask, which is so beautiful that there are so many people in this community that ask the question, how can I be of service? It is by being of service to yourself. Just by going into the void. When you do that and you surrender your will to the will of God, you cannot imagine how your life is rearranged. It's reorganized through the eyes of God. Look at how beautiful our planet is. Mother Earth is this beautiful because she is being witnessed through the eyes of God. Your life can be even more beautiful. when witnessed through the eyes of God. But it means that you have to let go of the eyes that typically look at, judge everything and blame yourself and feel depressed about stories that are read in the news. You have to let go of all of that so that God can look at your life through you. God looks at your life when your eyes are closed and you're in the darkness. That's when God is looking at your life and looking around and saying, oh, that's what she always wanted. Oh, that's the thing that he has prayed for since he was a child. There's the space that I can put it in. That is what happens. And in that surrendering of your will to God, your strength becomes godly, superhuman. Internally, you have a strength like never before. There is nothing, no amount of seismic activity, whether it is literal and geologic or emotional and metaphorical, no amount of that can undermine you, can throw you off, can destabilize you. If you are listening to this message right now, then that is what your soul wants for you. Because the more of us that can hold that, the more of us that can be stable with a smile on our face, not rigid, but stable and creative during this time of upheaval, the easier it will be to build a beautiful world. Because if you get knocked down on the ground, now we need people to come help get you up. But if you know how to hold yourself upright, you're ready to help. You are ready to go. That is what we want. We do not need more drama queens lying on the couch, bemoaning the current state of affairs of the world and crying about it. Yes, there is pain to move through. And this is a time for cultivating inner strength, resilience. And you are here for it. You're here on this planet for it, and you're here right now in this moment for this. So even if there is a part of you feeling very upset and saying, I'm going to turn this off right now because of what she's saying, that is okay. That really is okay. But do know that that fire in you that feels upset and is turning it on me, it's actually there to support you to make a different choice. That fire can be used to create something, to transform, to move into the phoenix. Please don't waste your precious fire on me. You can be angry, absolutely, with me, but don't waste your creative fire on me. Please use it on yourself. Please transform into something else because that fire is precious. It's your soul calling to you. If you have any emotion coming up, that is your soul saying, listen, this is why we came here. As I mentioned in the last public forum, it's very important to be aware of your physical health and also just your internal health. So anything that you can continue to do to strengthen your physical body, however small and incremental of a change that is, whether that is simply walking around more, walking around your apartment, taking a walk around the block, if that's all it is, that's perfect. Anything more to strengthen your physical body is highly recommended. And then other practices that are helping your body to flush out things that don't serve you. So lymphatic drainage massage, acupuncture to get your meridians in line, qigong so that your energy is also in alignment. And then small, very simple, nothing intense detoxes are also very beneficial. If you have never tried doing a fast, a food fast where you are not eating anything, this is a wonderful time to try that. You could try for 24 hours, or you can try 3 days if you feel called to that. Trying things to allow your body to get into a different state where you are feeling a different way. Fasting, you are empty. You are becoming more like the void, right? That's part of the power of fasting. Just as a hint, I shouldn't give so many secrets away, but that's a secret. You are becoming more like the void when you are fasting. You are empty internally. That allows different things to come up and through you that you didn't know were there before. Is your mind, particularly if you have not ever fasted, or if you haven't fasted in a while, is your mind going to yell at you? Absolutely. There is a chemical called ghrelin that makes people act like gremlins when they're hungry. That time when you feel hangry, you feel angry because you're hungry, that's because ghrelin is moving through your brain, which, by the way, is stimulated actually in your gut. There are enzymes that are released in your gut to tell your brain, release ghrelin right now because we're hungry. So there's actually a microbiome telling you to feed it. That doesn't sound very much like being in control. That sounds like allowing something else to control you. That means that your will is not your own. Part of strengthening yourself is calling back your willpower, your power, your creative energy to yourself. Fasting, because it requires control, is a way to do that, as well as other, I'll say, physical extremes, such as ice baths and other ceremonies of that nature where you are doing something physically extreme, and the only way to get through it is to exert your will and to become greater than the way your mind is yelling at you and greater than the way your body is making you feel. That is a way of significantly cultivating your willpower, is to do extreme physical things such as fasting, an ice bath, etc. So, those are ways to also strengthen your physical health. When you go in, and it's funny, I haven't said this the whole time. I don't know how I got through so much of this without saying this. Intention is everything. So, sure, can you just wake up and go through the motion, go through the act of doing something extreme? Perhaps, let's just say, taking an ice bath. Can you do that and say, oh, okay, yeah, I'm going to go sit in there. I'll be in there for, 4 minutes, however long, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah, yes, you can do that, and that's going through the motion, but that's very empty. That's a very hollow experience of what you could be doing. You are going in with a purpose. If you are not moving with purpose, you are unconscious. Let me say that another way. If you are doing anything in your life, any act that requires your hands, your brain, wait, I think the category actually is if you are doing anything but sleeping without purpose, you are moving unconsciously. We do not need more unconsciousness on this planet. We want consciousness, purpose, intention. That is how you align yourself to the life that you want to live and the world that you want to create. You must move with a purpose. If you are not, what's the point? There's no point in doing it if you're not going to move purposefully. If you are really in a place where you think, nah, just not today, then okay, then let it go. I would encourage you to really challenge that voice that says, nah, not today. I would really encourage you to challenge that voice and say, actually, can I just exert a will that is greater than that voice? Because the answer is you can. It's the will of God. So you can exert a will that is greater than the voice telling you to try again later or to do it tomorrow. I know that you can because you are God. So, as I said, physical strengthening and immune strengthening, internal states, including mental and emotional strengthening, is highly called on, and continuing with that. Okay, I was just checking in if I should mention this final piece before I go into channeling. The final piece that I'm going to mention is, of course, connected to all of this, but it is just a little more specific. During the time of this destabilization, this seismic activity, there are things you've heard me say this throughout this call already. There are pieces that emerge, that come to the surface. Because as something is displaced, that means that something else has to come in its place. So, when seismic activity is taking place, again, that's a very literal, physical, and geologic experience. When that's taking place on the surface of the earth, there are going to be new portions of the earth that are revealed. I don't fully understand what that means. That's just the message that I have received. And that is a metaphor for you as an individual, as well as for society at large. So, as certain systems begin to crumble, begin to fall, there are new pieces emerge. And throughout all of this, there's so much energetic seismic activity that is taking place. There are going to be more and more things, such as the structures beneath the Giza Plateau, more secrets in that way, in that nature, that are going to be revealed. More things are going to come to light that are going to affect our consciousness and our understanding of consciousness and of reality. That is going to continue. And remember, it's all a metaphor. That is life. All of life and every experience that you have, everything around you is a metaphor. I encourage my students who are in the Akashic Records course, I encourage them to do this a lot, which is to look at your life and to look at anything that comes through you like a dream, like you are analyzing a dream, particularly from the Jungian perspective, because that is where you look at life and every aspect of life like it is a reflection of you, because that is the truth. It is a reflection of you because you are God and God is everything. So when you look at life in that way, you see symbolism everywhere. You begin to see how God has a very, very good sense of humor, by the way. Very funny. And it matches you. It matches your humor because it's you talking to yourself. You're going to start seeing that. You're going to experience synchronicities in accordance with what is in alignment for you, the more that you look at your life like a metaphor. That is a big part of what we are going through as a collective consciousness. Understanding reality is not this solid. It's not this solid as it seems. It's a lot more fluid. And so if you can become more fluid right now, you're going to be ahead of the curve. You are on the edge of consciousness and the evolution that we are on, paving the way for others, making it easier for other people to follow in your path. But in order to do that, you have to be strong enough to continue with the flow. That's the trick. The flow is strong right now. I know that you all can feel it. It's very strong. That means that you have to be strong enough to go with it, to not get your head caught underwater. So, the final piece that is connected to all of that I will say is this fluid nature of reality a very strong, or I will say a stronger sense of the dissolution of time and of boundaries in general is major for especially the month of May. That is something that, again, I just was asking, I hope that they shed more light on it. They said that they are going to shed more light on it when I go into channel just now, because I don't fully know what that means. That is just the energy that came through, was this dissolution of time and boundaries. Again, when I consider and I just think about it for a moment, of where we are as a collective, that is because when more secrets are revealed and reality is changing, that means the boundaries of what we thought were in place and the boundaries that we thought consciousness had, those have to dissolve. They will. So it makes sense to me. And thank you. This is actually the final piece that I'm going to mention to all of you because my higher self just reminded me. That is to speak about discernment. It's not something that I have talked about, actually, surprisingly, very much on here. Discernment, I know that you've all heard that word. I know that because if you're in this community, it would be very low chances that you have not heard that word. But in general, the word discernment, or to be discerning, means that you are aware and you are able to identify what is relevant, helpful, and true, and what is not. Relevant, helpful, and true, and what is not. That's being discerning. This is a time, because of all of the energies, no matter what space someone is in, and when I say space, I mean whether someone is in the political sphere, whether someone is in the service industry, whether someone is in simply economics at large, whether someone is in the spiritual space. No matter where you are, if a person, particularly with influence, in any of those spaces, if they are not holding their center and doing practices daily where that is what their focus is, they're not necessarily going to be sharing information that is helpful, relevant, and true. It is very important to remember that right now, in all avenues of the world, with all people, whether you think that you're absolutely in love with someone, you can love someone who is not sharing relevant, helpful, and true information. And I hope that you do. Please love everyone. That does not mean that you give your power away to them, because giving your attention is giving your creative power away to them. What that actually means is that any story they are sharing, any information that they are giving, if it is not relevant, helpful, and true, you are throwing your energy into nothing that is not creative, that is not helpful. You're giving your creative energy away through your attention and through your awareness on that person and on that information. You're giving it away for no reason. You're not using that energy to create something for yourself. You're not using the time of listening to that information to go within and create for yourself. So is it actually helping you? This time, because of how much there is going on in the world and energetically, discernment is at an all-time high in terms of its need. The necessity of discernment is very great at this time. So things that you perhaps have had in your life, people that you listen to, shows that you watch, ways that you spend your time, which is your energy. The recommendation is that you become highly selective and you shave away those pieces that are not doing it for you. Again, if you are not left with the feeling of infinite potential after listening to something, is it really worth your energy? If the information that's coming through is, this is how it is, there is only this, it's locked in, where is the infinite potential in that? And what does that actually do for you? Jumping from one story, from one person's truth to the next, what does that do for you? You know what's way more interesting and way more important is your truth. Your truth is way more interesting. I promise you. And it is right here, waiting for you to experience it. Your life and the way that you see the world, the stories that come through you, are way more interesting to you than anyone else's story and version of reality. The way to get into that, though, is you have to move through all of the ego layers, all of the BS. I will just say that. You have to move through all of that and sit in stillness in the void so that the true beauty of you can come through. So if you are spending time, which is your energy, it is the only thing that you have in this world. That is the only thing, by the way, that you have in this world. The only thing that is utterly yours is your energy. Yes, I do mean that. Your attention, your awareness is the only thing. And I hear some of you saying, what about my body? When you die, your body will be given back to this earth. It is a gift from the earth to be used during this time, and then it will be given back to feed other life. Your consciousness is the only thing that is yours. And wherever you are placing your attention and spending your time, which is your attention, you are giving your consciousness to that. And that is the most precious part of you. It is the most precious. And it is the part of you that deserves to be protected and given only to that which is of the utmost beauty, that which is creative, that which is life-giving, life-nurturing, inspirational. That is what deserves your consciousness because it will feed you. It means that when you give your consciousness to something like that, you are going to receive energy back. That is what deserves your consciousness, your time. Nothing else. There are so many stories in this space particularly. I'm about to get really real right now. There are so many stories in the spiritual space talking about beings from different places and what reality really is, what does a soul do, what happens when we die, what about what happened before I came here. There are so many stories, beings that are controlling the planet. All of those are stories. It doesn't matter if they're true. What matters is the story that you are creating. You have infinite potential to create anything. Why would you spend your infinite potential on someone else's story? Why? It's never going to be as good as your story. I promise. It will never be as good because you're here to create and live the greatest version of your story. So it doesn't matter what anybody else is saying about beings who are on the planet, about beings who have left the planet, about beings who are coming to the planet. None of that actually matters. Is that all going to happen eventually? Yes. But what is happening right here and what you are creating, that is what deserves your present attention because it's all you have. That's it. All you have is your consciousness in this present moment. And if where you are placing your consciousness is not inspiring you into creation, I really want you to reflect on if that's worth it. With so much possibility, with you listening to this message right now, and with how much you can do in this world, why would you give your attention anywhere else? We need you strong and free, not scared and stuck in somebody else's story. Not even the story of your past do we need you stuck in. Strong and free. Okay. I didn't know I was going to say all of that, but that was very present. So I am now, thank you, going to tune in. And this is actually a mantis being who is going to be speaking with us again. She came through yesterday during my live Q&A. So I will just take a moment. What I am going to do, just to remind you all, I am going to tune in to ask if there's anything more that would like to be shared about anything that has come through so far, and also anything else that wants to be shared that has not been said. Then I am going to come and read your questions. So, and channel on them. So, will just take me a moment to tune in to see if there is a message that comes through first before going into questions. Thank you for being present. Thank you. Okay. So it's actually a, a mixed group of beings that say that they would like to speak about May specifically. That's funny. I'm sorry. They're saying there was one point that you didn't cover, and it's about the timeline convergence, which is the title of this event, which I actually had forgotten because they named it. That is what they would like to speak on. Okay. That is funny. Um, certainly. So I will actually share who I am speaking with. I can hear some of you asking, who are you talking to? There is a mantis mother who is here. That is a more accurate way of describing her than simply saying female, although she does have a feminine energy. There is a mantis mother here. There is an Elohim and collective presence. So there is a kind of a speaker on behalf of the Elohim. There is another group of beings that I actually cannot recognize. I've not ever seen them before. They have gold-skinned bodies, uh, and it's really more like an exoskeleton than flesh. Um, it's a hard covering, and I have not seen. I don't think I can really describe the way they look. It's not like anything that I've ever seen. Um, they look somewhat insectoid, if you will. They look somewhat like an insect, but they are also standing upright. Um, I think that's the best I can do without taking up unnecessary time describing them. But that is Durham. Durham. They keep saying Durham, so perhaps that is the name of their planet. Oh, it's the name of their collective consciousness. Okay, is Durham. Is it Dhurim? Dhurim. I have not ever heard of this before. Heard of them. Their energy is feels mm, neutral and slightly more masculine. So I don't think they have different genders. But that is the feeling of them is neutral but leaning more toward masculine. So, what would you like to tell us about the shifting timelines in May? Thank you very much for doing so. Okay. So they are describing how there are actually four specific points that are, that's very interesting. It's overlapping in quite a few ways, that are four specific days that energy is going to be anchored into the planet. And on each of those days, there is also, we can consider like a corner of the world that is going to be affected. Oh, wow. So there are far more beings, both human and galactic, that are involved in this than I realized before. That's why there are so many beings present with us right now. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Wow. I have very naively underestimated the significance of this. So there are 4 days and four specific points that can be understood as corners of the world, as they said. There are groups of beings that are kind of attending to each of those days and each of those corners. They are spread out uh, quite a few days apart. And I'm asking if there's a specific number between each day. They're all different. It's actually unique to that space from the point of on the earth, and again the point of consciousness, if you will, that is then being transferred to the next corner of the earth. The amount of time between is related to that. That is, they're saying it is actually a mathematical formula that has not been discovered yet. Consciousness and time. There is a formula for consciousness and time, and it has not been discovered. It will be soon. I am not the person to bring that through, but that's what they're saying. That's what the movement is dependent on, which is why there's not a specific time in between each of these points and days. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's what they answered a question that I've been having. They are describing how to put this into words. Because when I say describing, what I mean is they're energetically, telepathically communicating with me. So it's not that they are using words necessarily. I am the translator. That's my job. So there are several timelines that are overlapping during this month of May. There is a timeline of that many in the collective want to see birthed for where we are headed. And it should be stated, there are an infinite number of those timelines. It's not just one timeline, although we are speaking about it as if it were one, it is infinite. There is a timeline, or a version of a timeline, if that's easier to conceive, a version of a timeline that is overlapping, that is related to humanity's current path. And what that means is that this timeline is going to bring closer events that are waiting down the timeline chronologically. So technically time isn't real, But because we are here in this version of consciousness, we do experience chronological time. And so we are, in effect, taking a timeline and pulling it toward us. We are overlapping it on top of what we already have experienced and where we already are. So it's a very clear visual that if I had something in front of me, I would show you exactly what it looks like. If you can imagine a paper timeline, a strip of a timeline, and somewhere down the timeline it says 2026, we're taking that part of 2026 and we're overlapping it halfway through this year. That is quite truly what we are doing. So that's just one part of the overlap. The other part of the overlap that is taking place, and this is the place that I had a question about that they have answered, is the connection. Is that a fair? It is a connection, a tying off, and a healing point that is taking place with the timeline that was damaged during the Atlantean and Lemurian war and riff that happened. That is being repaired. Is there more that you want to say about how that's being repaired? Because I don't fully understand that. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's helpful to know. So they are saying that this is again, in terms of explaining actually what's going on, because they know that I really prefer things to be very practical, very earth. That's just the type of person I am. They can't actually explain that to me with my consciousness. It doesn't work. It won't make sense. So what they're saying is that this is again related to this consciousness time formula that somebody's going to come up with at some point in the future. Some child probably will discover that. And what is important to know is that this Atlantean Lemurian timeline overlap started last year. It started they're saying a little over a year ago, so last March, I guess it was. It started last March, which is also part of the reason why many, many people last year started to have memories surface around Lemuria and Atlantean times. Excuse me. And it's also the reason why there is far more information about Atlantis and Lemuria now. It's a funny joke, surfacing. It's resurfacing because this is the time in human consciousness when that is possible, such as the pieces beneath the Giza Plateau. That is also connected to this resurfacing of this timeline. The timeline must surface in a way, as in it must rise in order for it to heal and be joined. Now, again, they're saying they are using very human and literal terms to explain this process because it can't really be understood any other way. So that's not literally what's happening, but we are seeing the reason why that's a very good analogy is because we are seeing some of those effects of this emergence. We are seeing, and going to see landforms. Oh, which I guess is why they are talking about new life emerging, which I don't, okay. We are going to see landforms and other parts of society and of ancient civilizations, if you will, that are also going to re-emerge to the surface. So that is all taking place, and it is part of this movement again, that seismic activity, the shaking that is happening collectively is going to bring things to the surface and knock some things down. And some people are going to sit in distress about the things that are knocked down. They're saying some people are going to choose to do that. They're going to choose to grieve what has fallen. But we can choose to turn our attention to the new places that are available that are also filled with new life. Okay, so thank you for that. And certainly. Okay. So which order would you like to do that in then? Okay. So, um, this is actually beautiful. I didn't even Sometimes it's embarrassing being a psychic and underestimating the things that you can ask for, but I didn't think about this, and they're telling me we would like to share with you what a little bit more about what's going to be taking place while I am in Egypt with a group of people, because that is part of this timeline convergence. And they want to share some information about that, which is very helpful. Thank you for offering that. And they're saying it will be helpful to share this right now because then if people have questions, they can ask. Okay, that makes sense. And if I have a question, I can ask. Yes, thank you. So, what would you like to say then about that? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, that's interesting. So, yeah, and would you say that that's okay? So, what they are describing is there are, which I was going to talk about this later, but and I will. I won't go into all of it right now. I will talk about this later. There are specific dates that my group is participating in very specific ceremonies and activations on during May while we are in Egypt. Those specific days and ceremonies, they carry key energies that are, it is like when you start with one, it unlocks the rest of them, which I did not realize. But of course, wow. But it's sequential because this anchoring of the new earth consciousness, that is what is happening inside biologically is the unlocking of new strands of DNA. Wow. And so it is very much a series of keys that are unlocking layers of consciousness, but internally pieces of DNA, which is why there are 4 specific events that are taking place with my group that you will also have access to. And that's also connected to the 4 corners of the world and the 4 new portions of DNA that are being unlocked. I'm having my mind blown right now because I did not know any of this. Wow. Okay. So each of those days that you're going to learn about, they hold specific frequencies and again, keys. It does not mean that you have to participate or do these events exactly at those times. It is simply to understand that going in the order that they are given in, whether you participate live or not, that is the only piece that they are mentioning, which I didn't know. I actually was going to tell you that you could just pick and choose, but they're saying that that's really not the way that it works because, again, it's a series. So you start with one and it's logical and sequential. You start with one and go in order. So that is very important to know because I didn't know that. Okay. Wow. Um, okay, well, I'm sorry, before I have to know, is there more that you can say about the DNA, about what that looks like? Is that for everyone? What is that going to result in terms of what we will see? What can you say more about that in general? Okay. Wow. So she is saying that it is something that is going to affect everyone because it is a matter of consciousness that is being affected. There are some people who are physical carriers of this DNA, which means physically and physiologically, they are going to be impacted. There are others who are carrying, how do I even put that in words? It's like a crystalline impression of the DNA. So the physical DNA is not there, but the impression of the DNA lives within someone. Some people are carrying that. And there are more variations and varieties, but those are the 2 main pieces to know about, is what she is saying. Those pieces are going to be activated and turned on within humanity, within the collective, the more people who are aware of this overlapping timeline and in their own way, whether they are fully conscious of this overlapping timeline or not, if during the month of May, people spend their time sitting with in their heart a prayer and a meditation for the peace of humanity, of all life, that is going to allow this execution of this sequence of DNA to emerge both in the consciousness as well as physiologically in the body and within the earth much more peacefully. It's going to be a much gentler and smoother opening of this DNA and reactivation of this DNA than it otherwise would be. So that is one piece to know. The other thing that she is saying is that part of the reason why this is such a significant event is actually because the DNA that is being activated, that is lying dormant in some in a physiological sense and others in just a crystalline form sense, this activation is going to allow children to be born that otherwise could not be. They are going to come in. Wow, that's a lot of energy. They are going to come in with a 12-strand DNA. I don't really know what that means. A new strand of DNA. They're going to come in with new DNA. A new version, a more evolved, advanced form of DNA is going to be able to be birthed on this planet. And that's really what this convergence is about. That's really the power of this, is actually for the future generations that are coming. Okay. Yes, I am going to not let my mind be fully blown. Thank you very much for that information. And yes, I will look at questions now. Okay. Whoa. So I'm going to read some of the questions now that have just come through. Thank you all for learning about that with me. I have a feeling a lot and I'm here to answer your questions. So I'm going to go into that. Okay. So thank you all, by the way, for your questions. Thank you for being bold enough to ask them. I really appreciate that. Thank you, because these will serve everyone. So, one question is regarding, this is from Dave, and thank you very much for being a circle member. This is a question that asks, how do we if during meditation we are using our third eye vision or our imagination or just our ego or even just drifting in and out of focus and our mind is wandering? How do we know which one of those pieces we are using? So this is a very good question. What I want to tell you is actually what I talk about with my students in the Akashic Records course a lot. In the beginning, don't worry about it. And you might say, dang it, but I do care and I want to know. You're going to know if you just don't worry about it right now. All will be revealed if you just continue to explore, truly. That is the answer. As you continue to go out and mess around, I will just say, as in play, you're just playing around, you're going to discern the difference because your imagination versus the astral, it feels different. The line, it's very fuzzy between those two places, by the way, very fuzzy, but you end up learning the difference. So for example, when you go out into the astral and you learn, you ask a question, if the answer comes through and is rather shocking, you probably didn't make that up because you can't really shock yourself, right? You understand that only something that is outside of you that you never could have thought of would be rather surprising to you. And then there are times when you learn information that feels like during a meditation that feels more like a, oh wow, yeah, that's what I've always thought. That is also you coming to a place of further recognition and really more of a place of wholeness. That tells you that you're learning something new about yourself that's more like a remembrance. If that's the case, and if the information that comes through is inspiring, what difference does it make where it comes from? That's why I say in the beginning, it doesn't matter if it's coming from your imagination or if you're really in the astral, or if it's coming from a version of your ego that is just very creative. It doesn't actually matter. If you are left with the feeling of more possibility, then it's serving you. And when it doesn't serve you anymore, you'll evolve beyond it. Thank you for your question. Beautiful question. This is a question from someone named Anna, or perhaps Anna, but it's Anna, I will just say. What does the feminine energy emerging look like? Thank you. Beautiful question. There are actually so many ways that I could answer this question, but what I am going to share with you is more of what we are going to see, how we are going to experience it, and how we can support it, how you can support it in your own self and in the world around you. Feminine coming online, coming around, means that the nature of the feminine is stronger. So, what is the feminine nature? The feminine nature is, of course, nature itself, the changing seasons, what we see in terms of the energy of nature, the death, life, rebirth process. That process is the feminine nature. Intuition is the feminine nature. Emotions, because that's another form of energy, that's feminine. Everything that is intangible, including the void, is feminine. That does not mean that I am saying that God is feminine, by the way, because God is everything, so God does not have a gender. But the void, the nothing space, is a feminine space. Just like the womb within a woman, the womb has infinite potential for creation. So too does the void. Infinite possibilities. So that quality, and actually this is such a beautiful question because it comes back to what we talked about earlier, that is the dissolution of boundaries, the dissolution of time. Time doesn't exist in the void. Boundaries don't exist in the void. That is going to be coming online much stronger. That was one of the messages that I shared earlier. That's the feminine nature. It's this energetic quality that is coming more to the surface. And when we consider, that's all the energetic kind of abstract qualities of what's happening. But when we consider that on a human level, we are going to be experiencing that in terms of just feminine beings and the feminine side and qualities of people to also be emerging more strongly. So, for example, if a person has conflict with their inner feminine, it's also going to come online more strongly. That could result in a variety of things. It could result in physical symptoms, physical experiences that affect the body, and it also could come out in emotional outbursts, which was also mentioned earlier. Reactive and combative energy because there is not this peace and harmony with the feminine within someone. And we are going to see feminine becoming more empowered in a way that is not distorted, by the way. The idea of the feminine being emboldened and being empowered is not so that the feminine now has a top-down hierarchy and control over the world. No, no. Just to be very clear here, that is not what's happening. The hierarchical structures are also dissolving at this time because that's from the old paradigm. The feminine says we sit in circle. We sit next to each other. We are equals and we are each carrying a voice and a piece that is necessary. Not just helpful. Your voice and the piece that you carry is necessary. That is what the feminine says. And that is the feminine structure. Now, what will that actually look like on a systemic level? We are going to create that and find out what that looks like, which is very exciting. So in terms of how you can support yourself in that process and allowing that to come through more within you, really allowing the feminine in a non-distorted way to express itself in you. That might mean allowing yourself to express your creativity in ways that you currently do not or that you used to, such as through writing, through drawing, through singing, painting, creating music. That's all this energetic expression. That's the feminine. Allowing that to come through you more. Of course, spending time with our beloved mother, Gaia. That is also going to support and nurture the feminine. Just tuning in and joining your consciousness with that energy, the energy of the mother, it's going to allow that energy to come through you in a balanced way. Regardless of the relationship that you have or have had with your own mother, you are going to be able to take on a different energy, an energy of the mother, the divine mother. Because that's really when we say or when you hear the feminine rising, it's about the divine mother coming back to us. Now, the reason why I say that is because that felt very different to me when my guides made that distinction. The energy and my experience and perception of it really shifted. Oh, it's not just the feminine, it's the divine mother. Before I even started doing Akashic readings for people, that is what they shared with me was really going on. It's about the divine mother coming back and being birthed again or rebirthed, as is in her nature. So, cultivating the mother within you is part of this. The other part of this, when you, as a divine feminine expression, when you choose to align yourself to the divine, all-loving, endlessly patient, and deeply compassionate mother, that means that you know where you stand and you know where you sit and you show others where to stand and you show others where to sit. That is not, by the way, again, a hierarchical term. That is not a hierarchical metaphor of someone standing above someone else. That is about the feeling of safety and knowing what sits where. A mother always knows order. Her house is orderly. The mother, the house of the divine mother, is an orderly house. You can guarantee that. So there is an order to things. The mother knows that, but in order for the mother to stand in that and to therefore express that through her presence and through her loving words, she has to be orderly herself. That order that is created and the knowledge, the wisdom of where one stands and where one sits, when one stands and when one sits, that is actually what tells the Divine Father where and when to sit and stand. Not a direct command telling. No. It's in the very presence that the mother tells the father what is needed, where he should go. That is what we are emerging into. That is not a hierarchical top-down system. That's not women commanding men. No. That's not women taking on the role of masculine qualities either. It's about being so fully, deeply seated in the feminine, the masculine finally knows where to go. That's the idea. Again, you ask, what does that look like? I don't know. We're here to create that and find out. All I know is the order that I'm creating in myself. All I can control is how that is showing up within me and around me. And that's the most important thing. So I encourage you to find that out for yourself. And really, it's very fun, by the way. It's a very enjoyable process. And you may say, well, actually, I already have children and I've already done that. It could be worthwhile to get very curious and see if there is a new version of the mother that comes through you. No matter how motherly you may feel, no matter how grandmotherly you may feel, because this is a collective consciousness that has come online, which means it's actually new. Your consciousness hasn't been able to connect to this before. So it could be fun just to find out. Thank you very much for your question. That was a really beautiful question. Thank you, Anna. Okay. Oh, wow. I feel like I have to answer this question now because it's right here. And it is following this question. Thank you, Sakari, and thank you for being a member also. This is a question: how will the masculine energy be expressed in the future new earth? What kind of transformation will the masculine energy go through to be able to even do this, to become this new expression? Beautiful. I can tell you how it happens. It can happen in an abstract way, of course. It happens through masculine energy and masculine beings. And again, it's difficult to talk about this because we are all carrying, of course, masculine and feminine energy, and we each express a different amount of that, if you will. And it all comes through totally uniquely. So it's a little difficult to talk about this in directed to one group of people or etc. So just take this in, and however it applies to you is how it applies to you. When the masculine energy knows where it's supposed to go, it holds the container. The masculine energy can only know where it's supposed to go when the feminine knows where it's sitting. It is really a fairly simple thing when I say it like that. It's of course far more complex in the human world and the way that we express things, but in essence, that is what happens. So in your own self, I will speak. Okay, they're telling me that it would be helpful to speak from my own personal experience, so I will. I grew up, and this is actually true of the vast majority of women and technically men as well, but I'm just going to say of girls, so to speak, who were raised feeling that they needed to be incredibly strong in a masculine way. So these masculine qualities were more empowered within them, or there was the other group, and it might have been that you were the same, like I was. I was in both of these categories, where the other side that I was encouraged to be is the nice girl that just sits quietly. That didn't work very well. That just sits quietly and does nothing and kind of, is very passive and just is always, oh, yes, of course, I'll do that for you. That sort of thing. The good girl. There's the good girl. And then to counteract that, and also what was encouraged simultaneously, was this feeling like a woman or a feminine being had to show up very strongly in their masculine in order to be heard, in order to be respected. They had to show up like a man. No. And I will just say right now, for all of you who are aware or conscious or have this sensitivity, please forgive any and all gender identifications for this. It is merely to have this conversation in a way that I can answer this question very succinctly. So please let all of that go. While that is happening in a person, when an energy is being forced to be expressed in a way where you're supposed to be passive, but also supposed to show up with a lot of strength, that in the feminine, again, when that's what's going on in the feminine, the masculine has no idea what to do. The masculine is left looking around saying, you're being kind of passive, but you're also being very assertive right now. I have no idea what to do with myself. That's not to say that men need a woman to tell them what to do, because again, that is not what I'm saying. It is the energetic relationship that I am speaking of here. So you're going to have to take any sensitivities away and understand that I'm speaking energetically. The masculine energy, because of where we are at this time in our evolution as a consciousness, the masculine energy is here to pass off the baton to the feminine. That's the transition that we're in right now. And it is in that passing off right now, by the way. That's what we're in. That's why there's so much energetic movement and a lot happening on the planet. It's in that passing off. So the masculine is asking energetically, I'm giving this to you. Now, where do you want me to go? Collectively, evolutionarily, that is literally the phase that we are in right now. So, in order for the masculine to know its expression in the new earth, the feminine has to know what it is expressing for the creation of the new earth. That's a succinct way to answer your question, but I wanted to give all of that context because I know that many of you are in that place. Whatever energy you are expressing more of, whether it is masculine or feminine, you have been in that place and are perhaps feeling that and have felt that, the contradiction. So when you know within your own self, internally, where does my masculine go to hold this container? When you know that, then your feminine is able to be expressed through you. The creative infinite potential finally has a container to be held in. That is the nature of the relationship between the feminine and the masculine. So, spending time in the void, it helps, creates more order. So then those boundaries, when you're spending time in a boundaryless space, when you come back, the boundaries make a little bit more sense to you. It's easier to put boundaries in place in your own self after you have done that. And thank you again very much, Sakari, for your question. Wow. Well, I'm just going to say that I guess this Leo energy must be strong, guys, because I am talking about a lot of things that I would not have ever thought that I would be speaking about, but here we are. Full of surprises, secrets being revealed. It's affecting me too. And thank you all again for your questions. Let's see. Okay, there are many questions about the void, which is actually beautiful. Okay. There are a lot of questions about the void. So, one question, a question from many people. How do we access the void? What is the most effective way to get to the void? I love that you are all asking these questions. Thank you. Thank you for asking about the void and being curious about it, because that curiosity is going to take you really, really far out there, by the way. So keep that curiosity. Accessing the void, the most effective way to get there. Yes, thank you. Practical notes and energetic notes. Practically, you have to turn off all of your senses. That means I always wear an eye mask when I meditate, and I give eye masks to other people when they're meditating with me. Always wear an eye mask so that there is no light coming in. I use earphones so that I do not hear any noise around me. And I am either playing music or listening to a meditation that takes me into the void. I only listen to one type of meditation if I'm listening to it, and that is meditations from Dr. Joe Dispenza. That's the only one. Or I'm guiding myself in meditation. And sometimes that's fair. My guides are saying sometimes it's us. That is true. Sometimes it's them taking me into meditation. So sometimes it's them as well. But that is it. And I use headphones and music so that I am completely immersed in that experience. And by the way, I do not use music with words, and I don't use music that I listen to at any other time. I only use this music for accessing the void, because then your body learns, oh, okay, when I listen to this music, this is the type of experience that I'm going to go into. So just so you know, it's a very specific type of music. I do not have the songs change. It's all slow trance for like an hour. It doesn't change. It's not fast. There's no words. And I only listen to it during this time. And then, of course, other than that, practically, just making sure that you can keep your body upright so that you don't fall asleep and that you're comfortable enough. So like you can't, if you're sitting on something that creates pain, if you do not have practice tuning out that stimulation, it's probably going to disrupt you. I have a lot of practice, so those things don't really bother me. But if you need to make sure that you're all propped up with a bunch of pillows, then do that. And then, of course, making sure that you have not just eaten food or had anything that is stimulating to the mind. So no sugar, no caffeine, and no alcohol. I feel like that's kind of obvious. But meditating with any of that, it's just going to distract you. You will not be able to actually get out there if those things are in your system. And I just want to tell you, I have tried with all of those things in my system. So, because I've been meditating for a long time. So really, I know it's not helpful. If you wake up early and you feel like you need a little something to kind of get you going so that you don't fall asleep in meditation, that is a great time to do some jumping jacks. Yes. Getting your heart rate up is a far better idea because it actually will support your creation than going and drinking a cup of coffee. So, those are practical notes about getting into the void. That's just to support you so that you can have the greatest experience. In terms of actually getting there, the thing that I really want to tell you is what my guides told me as a child. Imagine nothing. And there's that word, imagine. Because then you're not wondering, do I go through my third eye to get there? Don't worry about any of that stuff, guys. Don't wonder, am I going into the astral when I go into the void? Truly. Don't worry about that. There's so much more that I want to say about that, but I won't right now. I will probably make a whole video just about the void because it is so important. Don't worry about any of it. Just imagine nothing. And nothing, again, is actually nothing. So that means there's nothing there. There are no lights. There are no planets. There are no stars. There's no you. So that means you can't imagine your body floating in a black void. You also can't imagine that. That's a really easy way to think that you can do this, but you can't imagine it that way. You have to only imagine nothing. It's black. It's just blackness. There's nothing there. The more that you spend time in it, the easier it will become. And what I would encourage you to do, I will always encourage you to go look at the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza forever. Until there is something that is more effective than his work, I will continue to encourage you to go look at that work. I have many meditations that lead you into the void. There's another one that's going to come out soon enough that is just about going into the void because this is so important. And if you don't want any of that, if you just want to take yourself there, then put on slow, trance, spacey kind of music that you don't listen to any other time, and set a timer for 5 minutes. And just say, okay, I'm just going to do this. I'm closed off literally all of my senses, and now I'm going to imagine nothing. And just try it. Just experiment. Truly, you cannot go wrong. Just try it out and see what happens and keep trying and keep being curious because a lot, a lot of amazing things happen when you go to the void. So keep being curious and go hang out there. And thank you all very much for your questions about the void. I hope that was helpful. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is a beautiful question. Channeling anger. And I want to say I actually thought that I would, but great. This question is from Toto. How do I shift the anger or fire into using it for its intended purpose? Whether this is answered or not, thank you very much. You're very welcome, Toto. And so shifting this anger or fire, using it for its intended purpose. I will just tell you right now, I will tell all of you, however many thousands of people are listening and going to watch this. If there is one thing that I know very well, it is about channeling the fire of anger and sacred rage. That is one thing that I know very well. And I know many of you may say, really? But yes, yes, that is probably the main skill that my guides have been working with me on since I was a child. Because when you're raised in a house with a lot of fire, like I was, you get sharpened into something that is very useful, but it also means that you have a lot of hard edges and a lot of mismanagement of fire because you don't know what to do with it. And most people, like me, as I was, and like you, Toto, they don't know what to do with it. I know there are many, many people who are listening to this who do not know what to do with fire. Here's what I can tell you. This is from years of practice with my guides that this comes. That fire, you actually, funny, you heard me talk about it earlier on this call. That fire is actually for you. And it's very, very hard to understand that because when you're feeling anger and the story is that it's about someone outside of you, you're like, no, no, but that fire is actually for them, about them, caused by them. But no, it's not. That fire is the fire of your spirit. Now, there are sources, if you will. Ultimately, it's all the same source, of course, but there are offshoots of that source, of where that rage or anger is coming from. Such as in my case, there was a lot of, how to put this, emotional trauma that had to be transmuted from my childhood and lifetime. And so when that is where the fire is coming from, there's beneath that, there is the expression of fear. Underneath all fire from rage and anger, underneath all of it, there is a fear and a desire for justice of some kind. That's where it comes from. That means that that part of you that is afraid and or wants or needs justice, you have to become very, very close to that part of you. You want to keep them right next to you. They're the only analogy that keeps coming through that I can use is when I was a teacher of children. It's the little 4-year-old that you are holding hands with all day because you want to keep them really close. And you don't make them feel badly that you're holding hands with them all day. You're just like, no, no, we're going to be buddies today, you and I. We're going to do this thing together. That's the part, you want to keep that part really close to you because it actually needs you. If it has fear, which most of the time underneath rage, there is fear about something. I can't think of a time when there's not. I won't say all the time because there's always the chance that it's not, but most of the time there is fear underneath. That means that that part of you that feels fear, it needs you. It needs someone, and who it has is you. You have to become very comfortable and familiar with that part of you and bring it closer to you so that you can learn it, so that you can listen to it, because that fire is for you. It's telling you something about you. Something very deep and personal about you is being shared and expressed through that little being that feels that way, because it is an aspect of ego that feels that. You want to become familiar with it. And when it comes to what to actually do with that fire in the moment, because that internal process that I just described and building a relationship with that inner being, that is not necessarily available when the fire of anger has sparked within you in that moment. That's sometimes you can actually go into that, but not always. That's a practice to go within and say, oh, okay, this is a part of me. The main piece to remember when that fire comes up, you have to tell yourself, oh, this is actually for me. This fire is for me. No matter what has just caused this, this is actually for me. This is a part of me that is talking to myself. And so if you are able to leave the room, if there are other people around you that this has come up in front of, you need to go be alone and be with yourself. You also need to move that fire in some way. If going and just being alone and being quiet calms you down enough and you can just move on, then great. But if you need to move the energy, then move your body. That is the way to channel energy through you, is to move your body. Breathing very hard, breath work, like just exhaling very hard, or going into an actual breath work for 2 minutes that moves energy. Not you can do something that calms you down and see if that works, but otherwise it is to move this energy through you so that you are not suppressing it. You're not putting it out. You're not pushing it aside. You're not shaming yourself for it. You're allowing it to move through you without coming out on anybody else or about anybody else. And then once the main heat of that fire has cleared, that is when you're able to kind of lean back and say, okay, what was that actually about? That's when it comes time to self-reflect. It's time for contemplation. Why did that come up in that moment? Why does it seem like every time I'm with this one person or this one topic is talked about, I get activated in that way? And these are very complex, nuanced experiences that cause these kinds of emotional triggers to come up within us, by the way. So there are an infinite number of examples that I could give within myself, but it's important for you to become very familiar with your nuanced complexities. And the only way that you can do that is to not blame someone else. You will not be able to learn yourself if you are blaming another. You also, by the way, will not be able to learn anything at all if blame is present in any way. So if you're blaming yourself, you're also not going to learn anything about yourself. It doesn't work. When shame or blame or guilt are present, the mind for learning, the learning center shuts down. How do I know this? Because I have a degree in education, actually, a master's degree, and I love learning and I love children. And I did not use any of those tactics when teaching them because it shuts them down. It shuts down the brain. That is activated is the center and the part of you that feels blame, shame, or guilt. So you can't go into those. And if you are in one of those emotions, you should not self-reflect. Do not self-reflect if you are not calm, if you do not have some distance, both emotionally and temporally from the experience that has activated that. Please do not self-reflect. The only task is to enter into a state of calm. That is it. That is all you can do. And then, after some time, maybe it's the next day, when you can breathe and you feel a little bit softer and you think about that topic, and that means you can self-reflect. And you're looking at it objectively. You're looking at it kind of from a third-party perspective, or from the perspective of your higher self, or perhaps looking at it like you're watching a child, like you're watching someone else and say, so what actually happened and why did that happen? What is that? That's how you learn yourself. And then the fire, it is turned toward creation and contemplation when that's what you choose to do with it. Now you're giving the fire a new direction, a new path. And it's not just exploding out of you or imploding inside of you. You're giving it a direction, you're giving it a purpose. And that's really what it needs. It needs a purpose. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you again very much for that question. It's quite beautiful and somehow feels very fitting for everything that we are talking about. So, I do actually feel very complete with all of that. That feels like a very, and that's so perfect. I was wondering how that was related to everything, and it is because you are going to experience a lot more fire very soon in your own self, if you have not already. Then you will be experiencing it in your own self and seeing it around you as well. So thank you very much for that question. And that is why it's a full circle. So the final piece that I want to say before I say goodbye, please explore the void. Spend time in absolute stillness, in the nothing, and see what happens. And because, again, it was brought up with these beings that came through, if you feel called to participate in this merging of timelines and this new Earth grid consciousness and this apparently activation of our DNA, if you feel called to participating in that in a more conscious, direct way, I have information on my website. There is going to be a lot more that comes out about this, including a whole video that is just about this, to explain more of what's going on. And I encourage you to participate if you feel called, in whatever way feels good to you, whether that is conscious and literal with all of the things that I am offering to you, or whether that is just kind of an internal intention that you are holding. Because you're going to participate in some way, whether you're part of the create. Why not choose to create life together? That is the power that we have as individuals. And I am moved by the power that we have as a collective. Choosing to come together with a shared, heartfelt purpose and intention, that is what creates the new earth. That's what shapes it. And the more that we have an imagination that is aligned to creation, to life-giving and life-engendering aspects, the more we see that birthed here in the real world. So, I want to thank you all for spending this time with me. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for choosing to be a part of this time of evolution in humanity and in consciousness. What a time to be alive. And I am deeply grateful and honored that I get to be here doing it with all of you. It would not be the same alone. So thank you. Thank you very much to members of the circle. Thank you for always sitting beside me in circle. It is such a beautiful blessing to get to feel so close to you. Sending you all my love. And please, remember your magic today. Bye for now.